This is not the video I expected to make, but I had a really weird dream the other night, and it got me thinking, how plausible is this wackadoodle dream to the original plot of Star Wars? Let me explain. So typically when I have weird dreams, it's just about flying or winning the lottery or something mundane. But this time, it followed the plot of the movie from my childhood, Star Wars. Yeah, specifically Luke Skywalker. And it got me thinking, what if this could actually plausibly mirror the plot of the actual movie? What if the plot of the original 3 Star Wars movies are all a wild delusion by a man on a lot of drugs? Hear me out, okay? Hear me out. So, like anyone else with not enough coffee, but plenty of time, I sat down and Googled the locations where everything happens in the original 3 movies. And I came up with this crackpot non-canon theory, and I wanted to see if it held any water. What if the original Star Wars trilogy was a grand delusion of a guy on a lot of hallucinogenic drugs? So in my dream, Luke Skywalker was just some guy wandering Vegas, absolutely zooted to the clouds, ranting and raving about the Force and Jedis and swinging around a tin can, claiming it was a lightsaber, and running from local law enforcement, which he thought were stormtroopers and the Sith. My dreams are wild, man. So anyways, like a normal functioning human being, I analyzed this possibility by looking at the entire story of all 3 movies and looking at every location and character that is non-human that he encounters and tried to have a plausible explanation for all of them to prove my theory that it is entirely plausible that you could tell the story of the original 3 Star Wars as just some guy on a lot of drugs. So let's analyze that possibility because I have nothing better to do today. Alright, so starting with movie 1. In 1977, A New Hope, 2 droids crash land on Tatooine with the blueprints to the Death Star. We meet Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, Han Solo, and Darth Vader, as well as some minor characters that are just like baddies aboard the Death Star. There's a lot of people. It's my understanding that any of the people we meet in this can either just be terrified tourists in Vegas or just imagined delusions of a man on a lot of drugs. But as far as the settings, that's where I had to look and see just how plausible it would be for this to work, because there's a bunch of different planets and a bunch of different spaceships. So to explain all of those, I have to kind of see if those plausibly exist in Vegas. At least for movie 1, I think I did. Tatooine could be very easily swapped for the desert surrounding Las Vegas. Apart from the actual city itself, there's a lot of empty space, and the punishing heat is an easy substitute for a faraway desert planet. Given enough mind-altering concoctions, this could be our Tatooine. Next up, we have Mos Eisley. In the movie, it has an imposing presence as a scummy desert spaceport described as a wretched hive of scum and villainy. I think we can find that location in Vegas. I think we can assume this is an area off the main strip in Vegas where perhaps there are no major casinos, the loan brokers, and the pawn shops, as well as maybe some very less popular exotic dancing locations. This is off the main strip. This is not where you have like the Bellagio or the Mandalay Bay. This is where you're probably going to find like the Super 8 motel. So we've established that that's a plausible location for Mos Eisley. Following right along, our next location to account for is the Millennium Falcon. So this one's a little tricky because obviously there's not a lot of like spaceship looking structures in Vegas, but I think the closest match we can find is the Strat Hotel's iconic tower with the little circular thing on top. Now, if we're assuming that Luke Crackwalker is on a lot of fucking drugs, he might think he has boarded the spaceship simply by walking into the hotel. And while the technological aspects of buttons and lights and all of that stuff could be hallucination, at least in his mind he has to see something spaceship-like for it to make sense. And the little circular thing on the top of the Strat does kind of look like a spaceship. So, I think we have found our Millennium Falcon, and it's the Strat Tower. The hardest one to account for is the Death Star, because there isn't really a big circular structure on the strip that looks like a big angry Death Star. Like, you could say it's the Paris balloon of the Paris Hotel, but the interior of the Paris Hotel is very, very French. And unless Luke Crackwalker hates the French, I don't think that's the right fit. The other thing you could argue it would be is the now defunct James B. Stagel Public Safety Building. because at night it is very Spartan, imposing, has a similar font type on the front. Assuming it's still standing. I don't know if it still is. I know it's defunct though. It looks very like Spartan and militaristic. Theoretically, that could be the Death Star. Alternately, he could be walking through Area 15 and running from the security officers, who would be your stormtroopers, because it is very out there and wild looking and more technological, so it could potentially look like the inside of an evil spaceship. Theoretically. One of the big scenes that stuck with me as a kid is the trash compactor scene where they're all trying to escape the trash squisher, if you will. And this one is the easiest to explain for me. It's entirely plausible that he passed out in a dumpster, and this is how we meet Chewbacca. He passed out in a dumpster, found a teddy bear, hallucinated that it was alive, and specifically hallucinated this because as he was in the dumpster, it was getting poured into a trash truck, and the iconic sound of Chewbacca is what? Right? That could be the motorized arm dumping the dumpster into a trash truck. And you might be thinking, okay, well then how do you account for the droids? How do you account for the droids? Honestly, probably some kid threw away some little like robot action figures that still had some battery life in them, so when he hit the buttons they said things. Those could have been dumped in the desert, the dumpster. He probably imagined they were droids there to help him on his grand mission. Like I said, anyone human except for stormtroopers probably hallucinated. That's my theory. But that's the first movie. We also have to count for the second movie. So the second movie, 1980s, The Empire Strikes Back, we have new locations to account for, which I believe can be very closely compared to actual locations in Las Vegas. To name them, we have Hoth, Dagobah, and Bespin. The big differences with these areas is one is cold, one is swampy, and one is like a gas planet, meaning it's up in the sky, which plays into the choice I have for that one and why I think that would make the most sense. In Hoth, he gets attacked by a wampa. Wouldn't you know, there is an ice bar in Las Vegas. There is an ice bar in Las Vegas, and if he has to hide in the corpse of like a wampa mounts, he stole some lady's fur coat at the ice bar. That he had a fist fight at the ice bar and stole some lady's coat and hid in it until the cops arrived and ran. That's Hoth. We have Hoth accounted for. How about Dagobah? Dagobah's a little bit trickier because it's very, very swampy in the movie, and I don't know anywhere in Vegas that can be described as swampy except an aquarium. With the high heat of Vegas and like the standing tepid water of an aquarium, it's entirely possible that he was at the Mandalay Bay Aquarium. And he has this moment with Yoda. Yoda could have been hallucinated as one of the coral reefs that just kind of looked funny and had some ears. He like hallucinates that Yoda lifts up his spaceship and a bunch of other shit with like magic force powers. Obviously there's no spaceships in the Mandalay Bay Aquarium, but there are a lot of sharks, and someone tripping nuts could theoretically think that a giant shark looks like a spaceship, and they have that tunnel that you can walk through where they can swim over your head. If this man is zooted to the gods, like he's on cloud 77 somewhere in the stratosphere high, he could perceive a shark swimming over the tunnel as Yoda magically lifting a spaceship over his head. So my vote for Dagobah is the Mandalay Bay Aquarium. Bespin is where it gets a little tricky because we kind of already used the Strat Tower. It could still be the Strat Tower. He could see the Strat Tower and misperceive it as a floating city, but I think there's a more plausible option, and that's the Link High Roller. It's this giant Ferris wheel that spins around. He probably boarded the Link High Roller, got anxious because it goes pretty high up in the air, thought he was amongst the clouds, and to escape Bespin probably was like trying to find the exit, and by the time he found it, it had come all the way back to the ground. So he probably got a little lit in the Link High Roller. And there we have all of our set pieces for movie 2 accounted for. Would you believe me if we can also account for movie 3? Hang on to your butts. As we're getting to the end of the original trilogy, we need to account for characters and locations from 1983's Return of the Jedi. Here we're introduced to more non-human elements such as Jabba the Hutt, Ewoks, and Admiral Akbar that I can remember offhand. Admittedly, this part of the trek might be a little bit more difficult and less plausible to explain, but go with me on this. Our settings include Tatooine, again, Dagobah, again, various spaceships, and Endor. Endor is a very forested planet. It's probably the most natural of the planets we see in the movies, other than maybe Yavin 4, which is where the Rebel base was, which I maintain was probably just one of the botanical exhibits at the Bellagio for the first movie. I realize I forgot to explain that one. That's where I think Yavin 4 is. It's just the Bellagio botanical exhibit. The reason I don't think Endor is the same is because it's more natural, and you have the bike chase scene. And you have Ewoks who are really, really small. Guess what's in reasonable driving distance of Las Vegas? Zion National Park. The Ewoks are probably children wearing snow coats, terrified of this man, absolutely zooted out of his gourd on drugs. And as for the bike chase scene, he probably stole an ATV or a snowmobile and was getting chased by park rangers. Boom. Still plausible. As for Admiral Akbar and Jabba the Hutt, because of the weird shape of Jabba the Hutt, it's entirely possible that he just hallucinated a rock formation talking to him that kind of looked slug-like out in the desert, which would be like Tatooine. So that probably explains that. And as for Admiral Akbar, he's very fishy looking, right? Very fishy looking. Probably saw a weird fish at the Mandalay Bay Aquarium and went, oh, this is an admiral, and just hallucinated a fish man walking with him and trying to save the world. So now that we have all the locations and most of the characters tied back to actual locations, it's my theory that in an alternate universe far, far away, very far away, there is a chance that this epic hero saga could plausibly be the delusions of a man on very bad drugs, having the weirdest trip of his life, running from law enforcement in Las Vegas, stopping at iconic landmarks, and mistaking them for planets and spaceships. What the hell am I doing with my life? Obviously, no disrespect is meant at all towards George Lucas and any of the actors in the original cast of Star Wars. This is just a really weird dream I had, and because I'm that kind of person, I wanted to see just how plausible it all was. But yeah, anyways, don't do drugs, kids, and have a great day.